Are you ready to embark on a terrifying journey? This video marks the beginning of a brand new series of Reddit horror stories on my channel, Rozaik Nightmare. Each story will take you into a world of mystery and terror, where things are not what they seem and danger lurks around every corner. These aren't just stories. These are real nightmares shared by ordinary people, and I'm here to tell them to you. Will you dare to follow the series, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any chilling tales? The horror awaits. Are you ready? This story starts with me asking the child I was babysitting, "What do you think is hiding out there in the forest?" He replied, "My mother. I've been babysitting all summer to earn some extra money. At first, I simply asked around at school if anyone needed a babysitter for their siblings, or if they knew anyone who might be interested. I began babysitting for families I knew, but eventually I needed more income, so I posted an ad on Craigslist. It didn't take long before I received a response. The family lived in the suburbs, but what unsettled me was how close their house was to the woods and the fact that they had no neighbors. Initially, I felt uneasy, considering they were strangers living in a cabin in the forest, but I decided to push through my fear for the sake of the money. The house was a small, cozy cabin, clean and tidy, with a lovely garden in the back that had a gate leading to a trail into the woods. They had small lanterns hanging in the garden and a swing at the far end. The living room had a large window that faced directly into the forest, and during the day, the room was filled with sunlight. The kitchen was right next to it, with its counter facing another huge window surrounded by pots, vines, and silly signs like, "Home is where the family is," or, "In this house, we say sorry." Upstairs, there were only 2 bedrooms. The attic was a tiny space, and its window also faced the woods. The child was very quiet. Honestly, I didn't particularly like or dislike him. I tried to form some kind of opinion, but he just didn't stand out in any way. He wasn't mean or stubborn, but he wasn't especially sweet either. He must have been around 5 or 6 years old, so I would put him to bed quickly and then explore the house. I've always been curious about the people who hired me, and although I know it's not exactly recommended, I would go through their belongings whenever I felt bored. It must have been around midnight that night when I slowly opened one of the drawers in the maid's bedroom. Inside were all sorts of trinkets, coins, notebooks, pins, and buttons. This family seemed to enjoy collecting random items and leaving them scattered around the house, and I liked examining them. As I was studying a small ceramic statue of a horse, I moved it around, noticing how the moonlight reflected off its porcelain from different angles. I debated whether to take it or not. Would they even notice? My chest tightened and my mouth opened. The horse was no longer illuminated by the moonlight because a large shadow had covered it and was moving across its surface. Looking around, I noticed the shadow took up half the room. I couldn't make out the shape or what was causing it. It felt so expected that fear crept over me and froze me in place. Someone was at the window. I knew it could have been a bird. That's the logical explanation. And I could have resolved my doubts by simply looking up. But I didn't. Because what if it wasn't a bird? I stood still for a long time, unsure of what to do, until the shadow passed and the horse was lit up again by the moonlight. I breathed a sigh of relief and put the horse in my pocket. Forget it. At the time, I didn't realize that this would be my first encounter with it. Something made me stop snooping and head downstairs. I turned on the TV and curled up on the couch. At some point during the night, I heard creaking upstairs. I know it shouldn't have scared me so much, but I was still so frightened that I went to check it out. The house was dark and quiet, and the 2 bedrooms facing each other were empty. Empty. Where had the child gone? "Jason." My voice broke the silence, and I felt like an intruder disrupting the peace of the night. "Jason, where did you go?" I kept feeling like I was being watched. So I turned around, fixated on the attic door, which was now open. My instincts told me to leave, but my mind, spinning with thoughts, refused. What if there was an intruder? What if they had taken Jason? If I had just looked up at the window when the shadow passed, I would have known what I was dealing with if only I had the courage to face it. My voice sounded much weaker than before, but I still had to try. "Jason?" "Yeah." The reply came almost immediately from the attic. Strange. What was he doing up there? I placed my foot on the first step of the stairs. "What are you doing up here? It's really late. Your parents will be home soon." Step by step, I tried to adjust my eyes to the darkness. The attic was much darker than the rest of the house, and I could see a faint ray of light outlining a small silhouette. "Jason, are you here? What are you doing?" "You're scaring me." I finally reached him and placed my hands on his small shoulders, but he didn't respond. He was just staring out the small window into the woods. "What's going on?" I asked. "And what are you looking at?" I sat beside him and gazed out the window at the forest. There was a patch of grass starting from the house, dotted with trees. The further you looked, the denser the trees became, until you realized you were completely surrounded by the woods, unable to see the sky because of how tightly the branches closed in. The forest began at the garden and swallowed the horizon like a dark mass blending into the sky. The window framed this darkness, this suffocating emptiness. It made me feel as if we had reached the edge of the world, and if we dared to step into the forest, we would fall off the face of the earth. And there stood Jason, just staring. "What are you seeing?" He wouldn't answer, so I decided to figure it out myself. Studying the scenery, nothing particularly stood out, of course. I just needed to pay closer attention. The more I looked, the more movement I noticed. Birds, animals, even the wind rustling the branches and leaves. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, and then I noticed the shadows, these constantly shifting stains on the ground. I could have stared out there for hours. Maybe that's why Jason wasn't moving. There's something about the night that keeps you awake. "What do you think is hiding out there?" I asked him playfully. "Where, in the woods?" "Yeah." "My mom." I blinked a few times. That was unsettling. I mean, kids say strange things, but why would he respond like that? Was it a "your mum" joke? Was he trying to be funny? "What do you mean? What does lurk mean?" "Oh, lurk means, well, when you wait or move slowly in the dark because you don't want to be seen. Like hiding. But you're lurking when you also want to do something bad, like how animals lurk before they attack. Or monsters," I added, trying to scare him. "So, what do you think is hiding out there in the forest?" "My mother," he replied again. "My." Body tensed up. "That's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Why would you say that? Your mom? That's an old joke and it stopped being funny a long time ago. I'm not joking." "Okay, let's go to sleep." "Your mother can't be hiding out there. I saw her and she's very nice. I don't know what she told you, but she doesn't eat people. She's out with your dad now and they'll be home in a few hours. If they find out you're not sleeping, I'll get in trouble. Don't tell your parents I said that. Come on, let's go downstairs. I'm telling the truth. What is she, a vampire? You know, something was standing at the window earlier. I didn't think much of it because, in my mind, everything had a logical explanation. Jason, however, widened his eyes. "Yeah, that could have been her." "Stop, I'm serious. And what does she want from us? Does she want to eat me?" We were now in his bedroom, and I had tucked him into bed. I had my back to the window facing the hallway, which now felt much creepier than before. "She doesn't want to eat you. That's great. I taste terrible anyway. Good night." I tried to stand up and leave, but he grabbed me. "Wait, don't go. Look at me." "What now?" "I want to tell you about this dream I had. This dream that woke me up. But you have to pay attention, okay? So in my dream, I was in a garden, and I was thirsty, and you were there too. You tried to leave, but there were so many bushes around and you got lost. And I found this puppet. I hate when people tell me about their dreams, but I sat there listening, facing Jason with my back to the window. Not because his story was interesting, not because I wanted to be there, but because while he held me there, his eyes kept darting to the window. I saw the shadow cover his face because he insisted I look at him, but in reality, he didn't want me to turn around. So I listened until he abruptly finished his story, and the moonlight lit up his face again. Thanks for the story. It was really interesting. You're welcome. Good night. Night. I spent the next hour in the other bedroom, fiddling with the little porcelain horse. This kid was braver than I thought. In the silence, I kept trying to hear distinct, unfamiliar sounds, but I didn't succeed. The house had fallen silent, and the night became uneventful. His parents arrived soon after. I put the horse in my pocket and went downstairs to greet them. Was he good? Yeah, the best, don't worry. I studied both of them from head to toe, their clothes, mannerisms, facial expressions, but mostly the mom. Were you good? The dad asked jokingly. I hope so, I replied. They offered to drive me home, but I insisted on taking my bike. I closed the door behind me, but instead of leaving, I went to the backyard. I just wanted to see something. Climbing the fence, I made it onto the porch roof, right next to the bedroom window, hoping to spot any signs of something, anything. The window was covered in scratches, but nothing revealed what had been there. I stood there for a while. I don't know why. The parents had gone to sleep, and Jason was probably asleep in his room too. I studied the garden from that angle, then the woods, silent as a mouse, and then the room where the parents were sleeping. After that, I don't remember how I got home. I don't even think I took my bike. I just ran frantically until my legs ached. I didn't scream. I didn't look around or stop. I just ran until I reached my house and banged on the door. My mother answered, annoyed, and I ran past her straight to my bedroom, covered myself with a blanket, and started typing this. Because while I was watching the parents, something caught my eye in the hallway. What I thought was a coat hanger suddenly moved. It had been standing so still, I hadn't even noticed it until it disappeared from view, then reappeared. This bony, twisted figure dragged itself into the bedroom and stood right next to the mother who was sleeping. It looked unnatural, like a human who had starved to death, with wide eyes and arms so long they trailed behind it as it moved. It just stood there, watching the parents, then lifted a bony finger and began counting. I stood frozen, watching this horrifying scene that would forever be etched in my mind. It kept counting and counting and counting. I was too scared to move, and I might have stayed there forever if something else hadn't happened. It saw me.